All right, what's going on? It's Bobby Skinner, Giants Nation show, and I want to do a reaction to the Joe Schoen press conference because we had a podcast that came out this morning. Not going to really react to it on the Friday show, all about the Edge preview. Let me take this hat off. I'm sitting here trying to peddle merch like a scumbag, but I'm not a hat guy. I'll wear the hoodie. If you want to do me a favor, like and subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. Again, got big goals for post. By the end of the draft, subscribe to the channel. But you're here for the reaction to the Joe Schoen press conference, and quarterback questions dominated it, right? The first question that was asked was, how important was it to select a QB at some point in this draft? Shane says, with the signings of Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, we put ourselves in a position where I don't think that it is mandatory. He also made a point to say that they upgraded the room compared to where it was a year ago. I feel like his words and his actions have set himself up to not have to take a quarterback at pick number 3. But then again, was peppered with these questions throughout the whole press conference. He said, would he be surprised if he didn't take a QB? And was like, what do you mean surprised? A percentage? He said, no, do you think it's a likelihood? And he once again said, not going to force it if it's not the right value. But if it is, they will, but not going to be backed into a corner on that. You don't know who's going to be there at what spots. I thought the one that was the most interesting, basically, someone finally asked him, is there an itch for you to take a quarterback? You haven't done that since you've been here. And he said, well, yeah, of course. Everyone wants to have a young franchise quarterback. Every GM wants that. But again, made the point, the value has to be right. He says, if you get that one wrong, and he almost, kind of wanted to say that like you're getting fired, but he said, well, you just have to get that one right. And then once again said value has to be right, but have to be in a position to get the right one at the right time. Basically saying, yeah, of course it is, but we're not in that position to get ones that I believe are a franchise quarterback. And again, asked, how important is it to find one this class? Are you going to land one this year? And he said, again, if there's not one, or you don't perceive there to be one, or it's not available where you picked, then it's out of your control. We'd love to have one if there's one available. Also mentioned, about just asked about the quarterback class in general. And he mentioned that there's depth to this year's class, but he's not going to be, again, backed into a corner. I thought that was pretty interesting, talking about the depth, because my assumption is they're going to try and take one on day 2 eventually. And then was asked if there's a discrepancy on a player. He's like, I'm the GM. I'm going to make the decision if I'm convicted on the player. Also was asked about, is there value in finding a backup QB in the draft? And he said, yeah, there is, value in finding someone in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, because he's cost control. You look at how much backup quarterbacks make. It's nice to have that. I don't think he truly believes that he wants to find a backup quarterback in the 3rd, 4th round. I think part of that is if they do take a day 2 pick, to not raise expectations for that player to be a franchise QB. But in reality, that's what they're swinging off of. But again, not just going off of Joe Schoen's press conference, but going off of everything that he's done this offseason. Like having the trade offer out there for Matthew Stafford, 2 years, $110 million guaranteed, and draft picks. That was not to draft a quarterback as well. It flat out wasn't. They believed Matthew Stafford was going to be their quarterback. Then as soon as that's over, they pivot to Aaron Rodgers, and they wait on Aaron Rodgers, and he still hasn't made a decision. There's rumors that they were, trying to trade up to 1 for Cam Ward, and the Titans basically decided, no, we're gonna stick and pick with Ward, and then brought in not just one veteran quarterback, but 2 quarterbacks in Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. You didn't need to do that if you were going to draft a QB in this class, especially if you felt like you were going to take that quarterback at 3rd. You didn't need to invest in Jameis and Russ. You could have done one or the other. Also, spending so much time with the day 2 quarterbacks of Dart, Milroe, and Shug, right? He's got the private workouts with Shador this week, but also with Milroe and Shug. He did one with Jackson Dart. But again, I just feel like he made sure to set himself up in this press conference where he's comfortable not taking a quarterback with the 2 guys that they brought in, and also mentioned 20 times that it has to be the right value. I still think that they'll probably end up trying to take one on day 2, as long as, the Milroe Dart guys don't, leak into the 1st round. I'm not saying I agree with that. I just think that that's what they're going to end up doing, is taking a quarterback on day 2 of this draft, because there's been nothing that has happened this offseason, or from any quote from Joe Schoen. I understand they're not going to give away their draft plan. There has been nothing that gave me, I think they're actually in on Shador. Right? The only thing you can say is they high-fived him at the Shrine Bowl, and they had everyone at the Shrine Bowl. But they had all their guys at the Shrine Bowl last year too. So that's not enough evidence for me to say, yep, that's contrary to everything that they have done this offseason. The other questions, they was asked about Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. With Hunter, again, we talk about him just, as pre-draft. He did it in college, obviously won a Heisman playing both ways. I do think it's a different animal in the NFL, and you can tell that Joe Schoen's hesitant about having him as a two-way player. Like, he wouldn't commit one to a primary position, and he cited, oh, well, we have 3 good wide receivers, and we like our secondary right now, so our situation would be unique, but not afraid to play him on both sides of the ball. In reality, if he needs to play primarily at what position he wants, if Deonte Banks and Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson or Paulson Adebo weren't on this team, what position would you put at Travis Hunter? That's the position you should put at him. You shouldn't let Darius Slayton or Deonte Banks, make a decision in what you're going to do with Travis Hunter to have him at that primary position. He said he's proven that he can do it, but that it's going to be difficult. And he said, physically he doesn't doubt it. But he said the mental part is where he really brought up hesitations, right? He's like, offense is really hard to learn. He says it's really, really hard to learn. And then defense, this isn't college where you're just playing basic coverages where you play cover 3 versus Kansas and cover 1 versus Nebraska. It's very much more week-to-week matchup stuff, looking for tendencies of quarterbacks and receivers. He says, again, physically doesn't doubt it, but just really seemed hesitant to want to just say, oh, yeah, we love to have Travis Hunter play both ways. But also he knows that Travis Hunter is insistent on playing both ways and isn't going to say, oh, yeah, that's not going to happen, because then you got a mess on your hand with, your number 3 overall pick if Travis Hunter is that pick. I was asked about Abdul Carter, not as much. He didn't seem concerned at all with Abdul Carter's injury. He said they had him in last Friday. Everything was good. Said he didn't even, that Abdul Carter didn't even know that he had the injury at the combine. And then was asked about like adding Abdul Carter to a team that has Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. And he said, well, did you watch the Super Bowl? Like, they were able to get after it with 4. So I don't think that those guys being on the team is going to stop him from drafting Abdul Carter. My guess from this press conference is that his preference for pick number 3 is Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and then Shedeur or whatever other option. But basically saying he wants one of those 2 players who will be there over Shedeur Sanders. Was asked about the QB private workout schedule. He basically and he actually made sense on that. I didn't think he was BSing, where he's like, yeah, we're meeting with these guys late because the draft is a week earlier this year. Colorado Pro Day was the last one, and prospects don't do privates before the Pro Day. They're doing top 30 visits over the last couple of weeks, while the prospects are also doing top 30 visits. And that he said they would have done it earlier, but they didn't want guys getting injured, before their pro days. Some other stuff: Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal, no 5th-year option decision has been made. Obviously, Evan Neal's won't be picked up. I think Kayvon Thibodeau's will. If he's smart, which he did this in 2022, you wait till draft day to make the decisions on that, like he did with Dexter Lawrence and Daniel Jones in 2022. And then we talk about it for an hour on draft day, and then we get to the draft and we never talk about it again. Was asked about trades. He says he's open to it. He's got some calls about guys wanting to move up, but that he didn't seem enthralled with it. He's asked about like the options of 3. He's like, I like our options. I like who will be there. He didn't just say like, oh, I like the board that we've created. He said, no, I like who will be there, which is interesting. Other notes, again, one thing that really bothered me is this, like, yeah, every year I've been here, I've tried to set it up where, you can play a game with the depth chart you have going into the draft. Well, you've already admitted multiple times in 2022 that he was drafting to fill up the depth chart. And 2023, he went into the draft with no center on the roster. 2024, I mean, we saw it on Hard Knocks how stressed he was about that second outside corner in the second round because of the big need on the outside, right? Like, it was like, I need Lassiter or Kool-Aid McKinstry. And then when they weren't there, he was obviously very stressed. It's like the next guys that we have are nickel corners on the board. So I don't necessarily buy that. But again, my takeaways is that he is comfortable not taking a quarterback or not taking a quarterback at 3. I do think they'll end up taking a quarterback at some point in this draft class, but it just feels like he's comfortable not taking a quarterback at pick 3, and that's not his preference. And we'll see. So hope you guys enjoy this video. Again, like and subscribe. Check out the channel. Film breakdowns, podcasts, previews, interviews. We're going to be, live streaming the entire draft. We'll have recaps out after the draft. We'll have film breakdowns of every single player drafted. How about that? Maybe even a couple UDFAs, because I'm pumped. I'm pumped up for the Giants Nation show. So I appreciate you guys We will see you when we see you. Until then, let's go Big Blue.